So hold on a second. Let me jump right to this. Right this.
Got him.
Got him. So just gotta jump on that.
We can do a whole episode on the appropriation of hip hop in the brewery culture by a bunch of white guys.
Oh yeah, like breweries that like literally only name their beers after classic hip hop songs.
Yeah, and they're all white guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not a racist.
Ali, that's what all the racists say.
That's what all the racists say. Exactly. So, welcome back. We are now on episode number 3 of That's What the F Happens. I'm Ali. I've got my homeboy on the other side.
What up, young Clay? Here for That's What the F Happens. Let's get it popping.
What up, Dieg? What up, Dieg?
So I was thinking we should call today's episode Ventilators and Masks, because that just about covers all the bases right there.
All right, so let's get into it. So
let me just start off by asking you, I mean, like, where do you fall on this, man? Like, how do you know what to believe when it's like the stories are contradicted? It's like there's a desperate need for ventilators, and then you read the report saying
the minute you like, if you go on the ventilator, it's a 99% chance you're not gonna.
I mean, it's silliness, right? I mean, and then one of the things that tickled me as well, one of the reports I sent to you was, so Portland or Oregon is donating ventilators to New York, and the idea is
New York City, I believe.
Yeah, and it's like, we don't need them now. We're not expecting our peak, so I'm like,
the apex, which is in 7 days.
Yeah, so they're gonna be sending them back or something at some point. Like, here you go. Now you get them.
Well, they were only giving them to them on a borrow basis because they assume that they're going to need them back. But this goes back to our other video where, as it turned out, New York City had stockpiled ventilators, which I found the most entertaining and amusing of the whole thing was they gave them, I believe, 400 ventilators, the federal government.
Right.
Then Cuomo says they need 30,000 ventilators. Then he said 26,000 people would have to die. Then, as it turns out, he had stockpiled ventilators. And then now we're finding out the federal government only has a total of 10,000 ventilators. So he wanted 2.6 times the amount of total ventilators the federal government had, but didn't want to use his ventilators that he had in a stockpile.
Well, so what does that say? That New York State alone needs more ventilators than the federal government has for an entire country.
Which I'm not buying, because I think you sent me the other article where it says, or I don't know if you sent it to me or I sent it to you, about how the South is going to be very hard hit, especially in, I forget which parish it was in.
Baton Rouge, outside of Baton Rouge.
Tonight, for the first time since Hurricane Katrina, the New Orleans Convention Center transformed to deal with an unfolding catastrophe, and a usually vibrant city is bracing. This is the historic French Quarter tonight. It is shut down, and health officials fear that Mardi Gras, that brought thousands of people right here to Bourbon Street, may have helped to spread this highly contagious virus.
Right, that parish was going to get hit tremendously hard, and they didn't even have really the resources. They're saying these more rural areas, when they get hit, and also the rural areas are not really following the social distancing as well. When they get hit, it's saying that it's going to be devastating because they don't have as many resources as medical-wise as the inner cities do.
Well, beyond that, all right, if you know for a fact, if you're in a rural area, your healthcare is not of the quality of New York City, just in terms of the resources, the skilled staff, doctors, the whole nine. And another component of this whole ventilator ordeal is I was reading an article in Forbes about all that in all that ventilator treatment entails. And first of all, one of the big takeaways from that article was that uh, the skilled individuals needed
I read that article,
to man these ventilators are
which
more,
is a very technical gig.
and they were saying there's a even greater shortage of personnel than there are ventilators. So it's like,
Right. So they don't have even the people to man the ventilators. So they're worried about this tool that even if they get it, they don't have the people to actually operate it.
And then if you are lucky enough to have the ventilator and have the staff to operate it correctly and manage you, because it's incredibly labor intensive from what I can tell. You know, they have to monitor you constantly, change the settings.
So you're very lucky because you have the ventilator and you have the personnel. But the reason you're not lucky is because if you have to actually go on the ventilator, pretty much gonna die. They can maybe drag it on for another week.
You got a 1 in 3 chance, I think.
Bodily functions through different drugs to even be able to use the ventilator, your chances of making it off the ventilator are very, very low.
Which, well, it's 1 in 3 from what I could tell, like best case scenario, which, I mean.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Yes, if that's the case, it's a 33% chance.
Well, but that's one of the things that, again.
But the numbers are always so fluid in these situations.
But that's a perfect example of how reporting fails people in its job. Numbers only matter with some sort of perspective to them. You say, oh, New York needs 17,000 ventilators, right? Say, okay, well, you know, what do they need on a normal day? That should be one of the first questions. Like if the coronavirus weren't an issue, you know, how many do they need? They need 17,000 because the number of cases has risen by 1,000 or something. Like, you know, they said something. They just continue to spit out numbers. And each and every one of these numbers, if there's no sort of standard, no base to compare it to, whether it's like, you know, okay, there was something today about the number of deaths in New York City and how hospitals are beginning to be overwhelmed. And it was something like there were like 160 deaths because of coronavirus in New York City. And I was like, that just doesn't sound that bad to me for a city of 8 million people. Like, don't get me wrong, but like 160 people die, that almost sounds like any given day in New York. So I don't know if you can't give me some
well, and then also this is the other thing, how many people die of metabolic diseases that are preventable through nutrition and exercise on a daily basis? Probably a ton. I mean,
well, that's the problem.
The most reasons that people die are from these self-inflicted diseases.
Absolutely, obesity being one.
Hypertension.
Lung cancer, lip cancer, mouth cancer. You know, all the smoking-related cancers are
free radicals. You know.
But so it just, again, you need reference points. So, you know, the numbers by themselves, the more discerning individual should be asking some questions and saying, hey, I need more background. I need more comparison of the current moment we're in to norms, to really, you know, and, you know, some people are like, you shouldn't have to be convinced. And, you know, again, it's the blind faith, but that's just not how we're built. So you want to be asking more.
My dad always says, trust but verify, which I always took that as just don't trust. Because if I trust, well, I guess maybe there's a difference between trusting and having blind faith. But if I trust, I feel like I shouldn't have to verify. But he always told me to verify.
It is it's a bit of a contradiction there, isn't it? Because it's like when you really trust something, you kick back at that point. You're not there like, let me go, you know, like it's like if your girl's
let me fact check this.
Your girl's like trust me, I ain't cheating on you. You trust me, like, all right, cool. But if you're like,
let me check your phone.
You don't trust her. So, you know, but that's funny because that was wasn't that George W. Bush? That was like one of their little phrases during the invasion of Iraq, I think, or that was a premise for, I think, going somewhere at some point. It was trust but verify was one of their catchphrases. So
we have listened to the wisdom in an old Russian maxim. Though my pronunciation may give you difficulty, the maxim is doverye no proverye, trust but verify.
I remember that being a popular phrase for a while.
Oh yeah, trust but verify.
Well, now we have two potential names for today's podcast. Is it going to be ventilators and masks and ventilators, or is it going to be trust but verify?
Trust but verify.
Or you could do the magical masks and ventilators, trust but verify. Yeah.
Right.
On the
Well, we
fly.
want to know the answers, and what you were saying about context is 100% correct. Because if you don't have the proper context, anything could sound like it's crazy. I mean, just by the inflection in your voice, you can make something sound crazier than it is.
Yeah. Well,
by putting it in big bold letters flashing red.
That's like the classic gig in the Austin Powers movie when he's been frozen in ice or whatever for 30-40 years, so he doesn't he's not really in touch with the times. Dr. Evil, and he says, all right, U.S. government, we want $3 million.
Here's the plan. We get the warhead and we hold the world ransom for $1 million.
Well, don't you think we should maybe ask for more than $1 million? $1 million isn't exactly a lot of money these days. Virtucon alone makes over $9 billion a year.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more. Okay, then.
Out of context, right?
Right.
But so, in the same vein, you know, we've spoken mostly about ventilators so far, but the other side of this, and we've already
is the mask.
We've talked about this a few times already this week, but it seems to be really becoming more and more the topic of the day. Whether we should be creating, you know, like homemade masks and stuff, and if that's going to protect us. And we've already been talking about, wait a minute, you know, when this started, it was like, you don't need a mask. What's the point?
Well, this is the thing. The mask, as far as I understand it, is it protects other people from you. So it's just a common courtesy that you're out here trying not to infect other people. The idea that the mask is protecting you, I think that's where people have a little bit of the disconnect. But they're saying because it can incubate for 2 weeks, you may not know that you have it, or you may be asymptomatic. You think you're good, but you're actually out there spreading it. So you wear the mask to hold it in, and basically you really also wear the goggles to keep from if someone else is coming at you. But it's weird. Jessica and I, we went for a walk to the beach today, and I asked her, I was like, hey, it's weird. Like now when I walk past people, I hold my breath. And she was like, yeah, I do too. See, so when we walk past people, we're like holding our breath and like looking away.
Well, see, my thing is I try to respect the 6 feet, you know, even when, you know.
I do too, but sometimes, like say you're going over the bridge, and someone's coming at, I mean, you know how it is.
But you know, like where the most I do is like I walk to the store, walk down my street, and you cross paths with people because people are walking their dogs and trying to get some exercise and whatnot and get some fresh air.
Yeah, I try to keep the 6 feet too.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, like, what I find challenging about the more we're learning about masks is that, again, one, it's mostly to protect you from infecting other people. So if I mean, it's that in and of itself is a bit of a problem because we're all just kind of
Right. So whenever I see people with masks, for some reason, I automatically think they have it. I'm like, oh, they got the Rona. But then again, it could just be someone who thinks they're protecting themselves from you.
or they're just following the advice of
The protocol. They
the
happen to
professional.
have a mask. They don't know if they have it or not, and they don't want to infect other people when they go out in public. I respect that.
But it gets fun because there aren't enough masks for everyone. There's a critical need for these N95 masks that they say they need for healthcare professionals.
Right. So they're like, if you have the real mask, give it to a healthcare professional.
Well,
But then also what they're saying is with these masks, you either have a cloth mask and you're supposed to wash it every time you wear it, or if you have one of those Home Depot like painting disposable masks, you're supposed to toss it after you wear it. You're not supposed to wear it again and again and again.
And that's not cost effective. People are going to go broke, so they're not going to do that.
Right.
And then even the way they're describing making.
Oh, you're supposed to not eat with the mask.
Well,
you can't pull it down, eat, and then put it back.
I mean, to a certain extent, it's like I saw someone posting on Twitter. It's like, look, when you come in your house, strip down everything, throw it on the dirty clothes, take a shower, and I'm like, at some point, to me, it's overkill. I just can't take the mania to that level, and I feel like.
Well, this is the other thing which I was also saying to Jessica is that now everybody's so worried about catching the virus. Well, what was everyone doing for their immune system before this?
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I wasn't optimizing my immune system by just getting poor sleep. I've been trying to get better sleep, and that's one of the hardest challenges for me. I track my sleep every night, so I know exactly how long I slept for. I know what type of sleep quality I got, and I don't sleep very well. And that is one of the main things that'll lower your immune system. Then also stress is another thing that'll lower your immune system. And people are stressed right now.
Well, that's what's inflicting me.
Yoga should be blowing up right now.
Well, check it out. I mean, I have mentioned, I believe before that I was injured at work. I work on trains on the subways, got injured. So I've been out. I was expecting to receive some sort of workers' compensation, which has not come. So I have been 3 weeks without pay now. So like many Americans, feeling that anxiety about how bills are going to be paid soon. Add to that the constant of the coronavirus. One of the insane things is that all my dreams last night, and I had some very vivid and wild dreams. I had a dream where I had a stockpile of masks at my house, and someone had brought them, and it was just dumped them, and it was just like, why did y'all bring these here? Like, this is weird. And all of my family was here, chilling in my house, and they just showed up here, and I'm like, what the hell is it? Like, why are y'all here of all places, right? And then there was like a scene in which it was almost like, so I was looking at this one of my rich neighbors having like a tower, and they were like throwing a body off of the tower, and I'm just like, these are some wild dreams to be having right now, and causing a great deal of my anxiety is translating into my dreams, and that becomes I think it becomes a bit of a symbiosis and vicious cycle in which your dreams are infected by your thoughts during the day, and then your thoughts during the day are infected by those dreams that you've had, and like there's a blurring of the lines a little bit. So I mean, you're right, people need to stay healthy, but I think a lot of people are going to be struggling with sleep right now, for not just because of anxiety either. I mean, we're all having to adjust to a new schedule, and especially when you're not required to necessarily have a set bedtime or awake time now. People, I personally enjoy not having to rush to bed at night. I'm a bit of a night owl, but that can be challenging when you wake up and you feel like you want to be productive in the morning. And so, like last night, I woke up at maybe 6 o'clock, 5 hours of sleep. dead tired, but feeling like, damn, I should make something of this day. And so I wrestled with myself in bed for like 2 hours. Just, I'm dead beat, but I want to get up. And every time I felt like I was about to fall asleep, some sort of anxiety crept into my mind. So it's tough, man. I'm sure many people around the world are going through that right now. And it's not a fun moment to be in. So, and like, as you said, the weakened immune system that will result, that's a problem. You know, people are, I'm willing to
Right,
bet.
and people are not going outside. Another way to
Yep.
keep your immune system healthy is to get vitamin D.
And
People aren't
not
going
exercising.
outside. People aren't. Are they eating fish? Are they eating eggs? Are they eating healthy fats? I don't know what people's nutrition is right now, because the food game is getting scarcer and scarcer. You go to the grocery store, they don't have any. They didn't have any fresh vegetables by us. Usually we get a big bag of kale. Like, all we got now is just like a small bag of spinach. That's like 2 days for us.
I'm actually surprised about that, because that was one of the things that I noticed early on when people were freaking out and shopping in a haphazard way, like, you know, just running through and grabbing as much as possible almost. Fruit and vegetables were like one of the things that were safe. So the fact that that's now being depleted is troublesome. And
well, probably the farms. What's going on with the farmers?
yeah, are they still working? Are they essential workers? And what, you know, these are people that are extremely underpaid to begin with, and subject to
Very exploited by our good friends at the Bayer-owned Monsanto.
Big
Bayer,
Ag.
also known for making Zyklon B, just for some historical reference of who those people are.
Well, so that is another major source of anxiety for me, is that I have again, I work on Subway, so I have a lot of friends that they're still working, and they're sort of giving reports from the field. And one of the things, there's two things, by the way, I got to mention. Don't let me forget to mention. I got an email about N95 masks for transit, so let's not forget to talk about that. But my coworkers in the field have been sending pictures and discussing the crowded trains. You know,
It's a high-risk job.
well, it's risky for those of us working, but it's also terrible for those people that are, you know, having to report to work. And that's the thing, is people are saying, "Stay that. Why are you guys all on these crowded trains?" And you know, I said, "Hey, remember, guys, there are people showing up every day at a grocery store to work, at a restaurant to work. There are, you know, these aren't people that
just think about whatever's essential.
Well,
banks are essential. In Florida, law firms are essential. Liquor stores are essential. Yep. Dispensos are essential.
So
payroll is essential.
And then think about this also, is that most of these essential workers are middle to lower income, which just by very nature is going to be heavily minority. So in New York, and probably in a lot of places, but in New York for sure. And where do these people that live? They live in the outer boroughs. So, you know, most trains in the city emanate out of the outer boroughs. So, you know, if you're coming from the Bronx and you got to get into Manhattan, I asked my friends, because I haven't been to work in a month and change, how often are these trains running? Usually on a good day, like the one train on a Monday through Friday schedule is running about every 4 to 5 minutes. Rush hour, maybe a thinner margin. And during the middle of the day, they call it the interval. It'll spread out a little bit, maybe 8-10 minutes, whatever. But right now, because their New York City Transit is so understaffed, because so many people either suspect they have coronavirus, or they've been exposed to someone who has coronavirus, or they've been confirmed as a coronavirus, they're out. So there are huge staffing shortages. And on top of that, that's just in the workers. We have people like me that operate trains, and then they have what they call the command center and the dispatchers, which are the people giving you your direction. This train's going to go here, this, that, and the third. Severe shortages at all levels. So as a result, like the one train, my friend reported yesterday, rather than running every 4 minutes, is every 16 minutes. So think about if you've ever had to scramble, you hear a train coming and you know that's your train, and you do that mad sprint to try to catch that train. On most days, you know, you miss that train, you're like, all right, 4 minutes later, there's another one. Not the end of the world. Sucks, but okay. But now, you know, if you know you got to wait 16 minutes and you got to get to work, you're not really trying to do that. So you got these people saying, what the hell's wrong with these people? Why are you crowding in the trains? Wait for the next one. People got to get to work still. Nothing's changed in that regard. They still got to get to work, but they can't wait 16 minutes for a train. It's just, you know, I know how New York works. The people, you know, we're on tight schedules and whatnot. So, and then there's no guarantee that you wait 16 minutes, another massive congregation has
right, that
gathered.
train's going to be packed too, most likely.
So, you know, and so I just had to remind my coworkers that look, man, like, you know, these are the essential workers too, just like us. So it's essentially, what's the alternative? You would have to shut down grocery stores, shut down restaurants. And what would that do? What do you do when there are no grocery stores to go shopping? I mean, it scared me to have to contemplate that as I'm communicating to my friends. And it's like, what are we prepared for that if it ever happened? I've tried to stockpile things here and there, but
no, we're not in we're in too urban of environments to be prepared for that.
Well, and most Americans, most people in the world, I think nowadays, do not have a means of feeding themselves outside of grocery shopping. You know, we're not raising vegetables. We're not raising any farm animals. There's no other source for us. So we are utterly dependent on the food chain, which is scary as hell, man. Like that should be, I mean, hell, if we should all come out of some shit like this being like, yo, I need to at least have a freaking couple of tomato plants in the window or something, you know, like this level of dependency. And I don't know, I think we're way too dependent on a number of things, but that, man, it gives me chills down my back. So,
well, independence and freedom should always be the goal. So in our previous podcast, when we're talking about the liberties and the freedoms that people are giving away,
yep.
Once you give away your freedom, and then you don't have independence and you're dependent on someone, I mean, is that not slavery?
Well, I think this is what it really makes me empathize with people that seek off the grid life. It makes a lot of sense to me.
It makes the most sense. If you're able to set it up to where you have a water supply, where you have solar power and you have batteries, those batteries will probably last you like 10 years. If you are able to have a greenhouse where you can grow maybe some hydroponic, I mean, maybe like my cousin had on his spot out in the mountains in North Carolina, he had aquaponics.
Aquaponics is the combination of two industries, aquaculture and hydroponics. It all starts right here with a tank of fish. This fish was planted 9 months ago at 1 inch long. Isn't that beautiful? A sturgeon. The sturgeon provide the nutrition by eating the fish food, which then is passed through a number of filters. Finally, it falls into this bladder. See, this is a bladder bag of water. It's just a big bag of mud. And as the water flows through here, it's available to these plants, which wick the water up and grow like crazy. It comes across here under the ground into the stream of water, and it comes up here like a spring. where everything that a plant needs is bioavailable in this teeth of water.
It's an attainable goal for those that want it, but you know, there's a lot of steps you'd have to go through, and you'd really.
Have you seen the guy on YouTube? It's called My Independent Life, or it's something, I forget the name of it, but there's this dude. He has basically just a video of him building a cabin up in Canada, and it goes on for months, years. He builds the whole thing by himself. He starts by just like cutting down a tree, and you just watch these videos of this dude building a cabin, and eventually he has this whole cabin. Then he has this other cabin that's out there.
And I was just thinking, especially with everything going on right now, about my family situation and how we're actually probably better than ever. Just the way things happened at the timing of this pandemic, we were already getting prepared, and we're prepared for anything. Not this in particular, didn't know this was coming, but prepared for any events that would make our day-to-day living a little bit more difficult.
You said that you got an email about the N95 mask for transit workers. What was up with that?
Yeah, so all right, there's two things here. First of all, my union, which initially was instructing us that we shouldn't be using masks because the federal instructions that masks weren't going to make a difference. So they didn't want us using them. They preferred that we not. You know, they couldn't outright say don't use them, but they were saying we prefer that you're not using masks, maybe because they were concerned about the effect. Yeah, the effect it would have on passengers and whatnot, or concerns about, like, if you're a conductor and you have something covering your mouth, are you able to make good announcements and communicate and whatnot. So they eventually backtracked. They began to say, okay, we'll allow masks. And then most recently, the union leader tried riding in on his white horse, being like, look, we got masks for everyone, you know, and we always kind of chuckle when these guys like try to play the savior. But anyway, so they do that. And then there's this rogue section of our union that they call themselves the Progressive Action. And they're sort of like a group of agitators that they're highly critical of the union as a whole, of the union leadership. And mind you, our union is composed of the bus system, station cleaners, station agents, people that work the tracks, all these different people. And the train operators and conductors, of which I am one, we feel like we're one of the worst represented sectors within the union. And so this Progressive Action, I think they kind of also consist of people within what we call rapid transit, and we have a lot of resistance and a lot of anger at the union leadership. So anyway, one of the leaders of this Progressive Action Network sent an email saying that he is organizing an effort to get our membership those N95 masks. And he said the idea is that it sounds to me like what he is, or what they are trying to organize, is sort of a bulk buy, so that we get a better deal, because there was a caveat where he was like, we're going to get masks for you, but you have to agree to pitch in for the mask. We're working to get the best deal or something, were the words he used. And I saw that, and I just kind of put it in the back of my mind until you and I were getting down this rabbit hole on ventilators and masks a little bit more. And it comes to find out, first of all, they're saying that they are trying to dedicate every single one of these masks to people in the health profession and not to other people. So right there, that's always like, oh man, like, you know, you're going to look like an asshole if you're like walking around in the nice mask, and they're like, dude, that could have gone to hospital. And then if an entire union springs to get a bunch of those, I don't know how that plays for, you know, public perception, and for which at the end of the day probably isn't of the most importance, but still, you know, I mean, I think some people would argue that we're lower on the priority level, I'd say. So it just
Well,
something
this is the thing. All we hear about is ventilators, ventilators, ventilators. But wouldn't it be easier to just make masks? I feel like the ventilators got to be way harder to produce than to produce just the mask. You never, and like, you got other companies that are switching over to making the, like GM's supposed to be making the, that was actually an interesting story where GM, all right, so Trump invoked his wartime powers that's from like the Korean War or whatever, where he told private business they need to do something. So they need, GM started making these ventilators, but then now the federal government hasn't placed any orders. So they're like, oh, well, you had us make these ventilators, but are you going to even buy them?
Well, I mean, if New York's so hard up for them, why can't they buy them? I mean, the whole thing, there just seem to be all these blatant contradictions out there.
I almost feel like the masks are more important than the ventilators, because that way you're stopping people from spreading it as opposed to like extending someone's life for a week, you know?
Well, I mean, I agree with you in principle, but I'm sure in the medical field they have their own means of determining these things, and you know,
but how much is the ventilator? How much does one of these things cost?
I gotta guess they're hundreds of $1,000s.
But are they? We don't know. I mean, and then how much is a mask? How much is one of those N95 masks?
Well, keep in mind also that first of all, I didn't dig, because at the time it wasn't something of particular interest, but I do recall a few days ago there was a news report or somewhere I saw something to suggest that rather than the federal government taking charge of producing the masks, they decided that what they do is, you know, leave it to the market, right? And so the problem with when you leave it to the market, they're going to go based off of demand in order to determine their pricing, right? So the demand is high right now. So how expensive do you think those damn masks are going to be? They're going to be as high as the demand dictates, right? So
wow, they're saying the cost of ventilators can range from $5,000 to $50,000.
How much are you willing to pay for an N95 mask?
Right now, I paid $20 for one.
For N95. Well, first of all, do you even? I don't even know what makes the N95 mask special. So, all right, they do have.
Oh, I guess I would determine whether it was a disposable or not a disposable. You could get N95 mask, disposable, N95 approved value particular respirator. You get a box for $11, and there's 10 in a box. Those are disposables. Or you could get this other box that's like 14, and then you get 10 in that box.
Well, so that sounds like that'll get you through, you know, a quarantine if you were determined to be sick, like a box and a half, right? Because you're supposed to quarantine. Well, and again, that's assuming, you know, you really would only need it when you're leaving the house if you assume that you're infected, right? So you're not necessarily going out every single day.
Every mask is out of stock, but the point is this. The point is this. If you could get a 10-pack of masks, the N95 mask, for $11, but like the cheapest ventilator is 5Gs, they're 5Gs to 50Gs, I feel like the stronger move is to make sure people have masks so they're not passing it to each other, as opposed to like trying to get these ventilators, which seems to be like a whole ordeal.
We talk about another, maybe this should be the last thing we touch on, but you know, they talked about with these masks, like let's say you make the makeshift homemade mask, something you just put over your face. The instructions I was reading suggested that the key is not to come in contact with any of this area and to remove it from here or whatnot. So that suggests to me that there's something about you touching it that you would be contaminating
it.
and that doesn't add up to me. Like, why would there be particles here but not here? That makes sense.
Makes sense.
But again, like, what's not quite adding up to me is like, it suggests that almost like by going out, like what is really frustrating to me is it sounds like people are getting advice that suggests that just by going outside, you're exposing yourself, right?
Well, the vitamin D would actually help you. That's what I tell you.
Well, but my point is that, and that's freaking people out where we're getting mixed messages. So if I just go outside, is it that like the shit is sticking to me everywhere, and that's why people's initial reaction is like, when I get home, I got to jump in the shower and clean myself. If I touch the front of this mask, all of a sudden I'm infected. My thing is, if that's the case, then you go outside and you touch anything, then everything becomes a carrier. It just becomes so exponentially ridiculous that I can't follow it, and I'm not following the logic here, and all it does is undermine my willingness to, really
to
take it serious.
To buy into the narrative.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this is probably a good time to conclude. We might have gone off the rails there a little bit at the end, but
we did. Well, I mean, masks, ventilators. I don't know what you guys think about the whole situation. I'm sticking to if I were in charge, I would focus more on the masks and the social distancing and the not spreading it than trying to get more and more ventilators for the quote unquote apex, when the evidence shows that you might not even have enough people to operate the ventilators. And even if you go on the ventilator, your chances are kind of low because they have to shut down your whole system to even use the ventilator on you.
Yep.
But this is where we are.
But that's what the F happens, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, thank you for tuning in to episode number 3 of That's What the F Happens. And we'll be seeing y'all on the next one.